friends, to our meditation time. I would just invite you to settle in wherever you are. If you are seated, really ground yourself down into your sit bones and relax through your shoulders. If you're lying down, just stretch out in a way that you can really feel the breath move up and down your spine. And whether you've chosen seated or lying down, just let your head come to a spot that feels supported. If you're seated, allow the head to just kind of settle in there. Let the neck relax just a little. If you're lying down, feel the support of the ground beneath you. And really bring your physical self to a place of comfort. And then maybe you're ready to close your eyes, soften your jaw, relax the muscles in your face, and just really give yourself these moments of pulling away, of finding some stillness within, so that once we return to the normal activities of our day, our week, maybe we'll take the stillness with us. It won't just permeate this space where we are now, but it will begin to permeate all the parts of our lives. And so let's settle in together with a little bit of breath. So very slowly, fill yourself up as you take a deep breath in. And then ever so gently let that go. And again, slowly filling yourself up on the breath in. And again, ever so gently let it go. And then one more on your own, just a deep breath in. And when you feel like you are just filled up with this life-giving force, then gently release what you do not need. And then from there, just find a rhythm of breath that honors what you need right now. Some of us need a little vibrancy in the breath because we're feeling a little sluggish. Some of us need just the opposite. We've just come from activity, from busyness, and we need a breath that will slow us down. So you find the breath that honors you. And so we're on this journey across these next couple of weeks together, looking at the text of the 4 agreements. And we spent just a little bit of time looking at this first agreement of being impeccable with our words. And I want to just remind us what that is. And if you didn't hear it, make sure we're all together as we head toward the second agreement tonight. But this first agreement, be impeccable with your words. We learned that the words that we think and speak to ourselves are the foundation for how we think about and speak to others. We don't just all of a sudden speak kindly and speak with patience and all the things that we want to project, but rather those things come from what is inside of us, how we've spoken to ourselves, how we've thought about ourselves. And so this idea of being impeccable with our words, it's really being intentional, choosing words that are kind and compassionate, choosing words that have patience and grace, choosing words that are necessary to be spoken. Because there's a lot of words out there that we say and we think that may not be necessary, and oftentimes may not be kind. And so being impeccable with our words is really setting the tone. How do we speak to ourselves? And we've got to have that context to look at this second agreement. The second agreement says, so simply, don't take things personally. Don't take things personally. And so as we think about that first agreement and speaking to ourselves in a way that is affirming, that builds us up, I want to just ask each of us a couple questions when we think about this idea of how we see ourselves. Do you believe that you have value? You're not going to answer it out loud. It's just an answer inside of you, but truly, with no doubt in your mind, do you believe that you have value? And then my second question asks us, do you believe that you have something to contribute to this world? Do you believe that you have something to contribute to this world? And for some of us, maybe our answers to those questions are not very confident. For others, maybe they're not very positive. But what I'd like us to do is, through our few minutes that we have, our sitting, our reflecting, our being, see if we can come to a different place in how we answer those questions. And so I want to use the idea of poison. This example of, think about when you're growing up and your mother has this section in the cupboard where the children were never allowed to go. It was always in the back, and there was always these warning signs, these pictures of oftentimes a skull and these crossbones, and you knew those were the things you didn't touch. They were these poisons, and they served purposes. Now we know a lot more about toxic chemicals and things in our lives, but many of us can remember growing up, and we had these products. Again, always pushed to the back, always hands off. And so I want to ask us a question that I know may sound silly, and hopefully it's a little bit rhetorical, but would you ever go into that cupboard, take out that bottle that has this clear warning label on it, and drink it? And I know the question sounds silly because the answer is of course not. The warnings are there. Someone has told us that these things are not good for us. So of course, we would never drink the poison. So the second agreement tells us, don't take things personally. We have all encountered people, maybe even today, who spoke unkindly to us or about us. We have all encountered people who have been impatient and critical of us. We've all encountered people who have been really hurtful in the things that they've said to us at different points in our life. And what we understand about these agreements, this ancient, indigenous teaching, is that when you hear those words and you begin to believe that they're a little bit true, you're making an agreement with those words and the person who said it, that you think those words are right. And then those words become the truth of how you see yourself. And what this text teaches us, this ancient indigenous teaching says, that is no different than going under the cupboard, taking out the bottle of poison, and taking a drink. We've allowed these words, these sentiments, these judgments, these hurtful things to come into our being, just as if we drank from the bottle of poison. Oftentimes when people are hurtful toward us, it really has nothing to do with us. It has everything to do with them. But we take their emotional poison and we make it our own. And then we start living it as if it's true. And then it becomes really hard to answer yes to the question of, do you believe that you have value? And do you believe that you have something to contribute to this world? I understand that we are emotional beings. There's an entire layer of our being that's this charged up emotional part of us. Our senses are powerful. Oftentimes they guide us into places we shouldn't go. They send messages to our emotions that just aren't true. And as illogical as it sounds, to go under that cupboard and get that bottle of poison and drink it, shouldn't it be just as illogical to allow hurtful and harmful words to change how we see ourselves? And so I'd like us just to sit for just the next couple of moments and just kind of let that image just sit with you. And for some of us, we have these logical, rational minds, and we can't even imagine. It sounds so silly. And others, we know we've fallen victim to that. We know that there have been hurtful words that people have said, hurtful actions that have been taken against us and toward us. And we've allowed them to become our truth. So maybe these next couple of moments of the quiet, just you, just me, we can begin to see our truth with new eyes. Not making a laundry list of all the things that we've believed and we've brought in as this merely messed up truth, but rather sitting here with this commitment to let those things go. So just continue to breathe in that same nurturing breath that you started with, just a full breath in and a gentle breath out. And let's just sit, being aware of whatever's going on across our mind, whatever we're feeling within our emotions. As you continue to breathe, noticing whatever came up for you in those couple moments of quiet. That really is what this practice is about. It's just the noticing. It's the awareness. I don't think it's an accident that as Don Miguel Ruiz wrote this book about this ancient indigenous teaching of these agreements, he started off with us being impeccable with our words, of us deciding how we're going to talk to ourselves, how we're going to see ourselves, how we're going to treat ourselves when we mess up. Because once we practice that often enough, when someone's toxic, poisonous words come toward us, we're not about to let that work of being impeccable go to waste. I always think about these little kids and this, I'm rubber and you're glue, and that little phrase that kids would always say in the schoolyard. I think it's pretty good advice for us as adults. This idea of these words just kind of bounce off, and I understand that words can hurt. But the more I practice at being impeccable, the more I practice at treating myself like I'm pretty wonderful and amazing and that I have value, there's no way I will let someone else's poison get into my cup and then take a drink of it. And so I want to go back as we prepare to close our time to those two questions that I asked us when we began. And you may have thought of an answer, And your answer now may be exactly the same, but at least you've got something else to think about. The first question asked, and I'm going to change the you to I, because the question is for each of us. Do I believe that I have value? Do I believe that I have value? And do I believe that I have something to contribute to this world? Do I believe that I have something to contribute to this world? If you'll hang on to those two questions and just continue to ask yourself those questions and sit with them, the more you're unable to say yes with a capital Y, the more aware you become of the work that you need to do with yourself, of integrating more kindness, of bringing in more grace, of giving yourself a break and looking upon yourself with eyes of compassion and grace. And as we practice that second agreement eventually becomes almost second nature. We won't take those things personally. We'll leave the poison where it belongs, in the back of the cupboard, where no one has anything to do with it. And so I want to end our time with my answers to those questions, and maybe my answers can hold space for us collectively, and maybe my answers will be yours. But just continue to breathe. Just a couple more breaths together. I believe that I have value, and I know that I have something to contribute to this world. Again, let my resolution, my belief hold space until someday you can believe those things about yourself. And we'll leave the poison where it belongs. Namaste.